This is Your Changing Life. This is about how feminism has affected one individual woman in living her own life. And this is Biff Ward. Today I'm talking with Pat Eatock. I mean, you're what, in your early 40s, late 30s? Sorry.
40.
40. Right. You're a
Birthday last
40-year-old woman, Australian woman, part black, with a working class background. How did you get to be at an international conference in Mexico and doing such a trip and talking to Indian women,
Well,
Indian women? I mean, that sounds like quite a change in your life.
It's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, up till about the beginning of 1972, I was just a housewife in Sydney's western suburbs with numerous children, one of whom was mentally retarded. And I really never expected to be able to go anywhere or do anything except be a Green Valley housewife for the rest of my life. The marriage was pretty horrendous. The tensions, the strains, money worries, just scraping for survival was pretty bad in those days. And I think it was around about then that feminism entered my life. It ended my life quite dramatically.
Yeah.
I ended up a refugee from suburbia, arriving in Canberra and descending on the Canberra women's movement with a baby 5 months old, and absolutely no money. I think they found that all pretty hard to cope with. But instead, I started doing quite insane things. Fools rush in where angels fear to tread. And one of the things that I did was becoming a very public person in the Canberra community around Aboriginal issues and women's issues.
So that quite young you were learning a fairly strongly a working class consciousness too.
Oh yes, I imagine I was. As we had a rather unusual family background. My father was Aboriginal, but he came from a mixed family, mixed ancestry, and he was the youngest in the family. And back in those days, he was also the lightest.
Yeah.
And in those days, it was so difficult if you're Aboriginal. In fact, it was impossible in some places to get an education for Aboriginal children, I think up till about 1947 or 48, when I would have been 10 or 11. So that for lots of reasons, my father went to Queensland, left his family in another state, and attempted to live white. And we were accepted into school. We were never told that we were of Aboriginal descent. All sorts of peculiar things kept happening. And my father used to, a very sedate gentleman, you know, very, very proper person, very much respected within the community. But every now and then he would run into somebody who might say, call one of my sisters looked very Aboriginal, and she was occasionally called Topsy. And, you know, there were brawls. My father wasn't a violent man, but every now and then, I remember on one particular occasion at the seaside, and he just waded into the ocean fully dressed in this lovely grey suit and dragged a man off the boat who had made some comment about the darkness of my sister's skin and her features. So that we led, even then, a comparatively isolated life. We didn't mix. We weren't allowed to bring friends home. My mother wasn't allowed to speak to the neighbours. And I think my father went in fear of making friends, because when a friend turns against you, it's worse than somebody that doesn't know you.
Sounds like he led a very lonely, scared life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, eventually he became, you know, quite utterly paranoid and went into a mental institution. But in the meantime, he had brought us up with some very, very strong working class attitudes.
Yeah.
And we were sort of well founded in our awareness of, if not what the trade union movement was doing, certainly we knew what they were supposed to be doing on behalf of their membership.
Yeah. So, with all that kind of background, you moved to Canberra in the early 70s, ran for Parliament, became a university student, still looking after your children, running a family.
Yes, well, eldest girl arrived in Canberra just about the time of the 72 elections, which was some 6 or 8 months after I'd left suburbia. And the other children arrived 12 months later, so that I have 5 of the 6 children with me since the end of 1973. For a long time we were living, I think 2.5 years, we were living at Narrabundah in what used to be the numbered streets, overcrowded. I remember the living room was maybe 10 feet square, and it was the only living space. You know, the kitchen was pocket handkerchief size. And that room was also my bedroom and my study and television room for the children. So life was pretty hectic, but about 2 or 3 years ago we moved into Government House in Canberra, and life's been a lot easier since then.